Howdy folks, Jambareeqi here. Ever since I started ranking animated villains on my channel, I've had a lot of requests to rank the Dreamworks villains. Well, after many months of work, it's finally here. A few things before we begin though. I won't be including Chelsea from Dreamworks' newest film, Ruby Gillman, because I've not had time to watch that movie yet. I won't be including villain protagonists, like Megamind and the bad guys. When I say villains, I'm only talking about antagonists. With all that said, let the countdown begin. Hendrix from Spirit Untamed. Hendrix is a horse wrangler who poaches Spirit the Stallion's family to exploit them for easy cash. I really wish that I could say a lot about him, but damn is he unremarkable. At the end of the day, he's just your average interchangeable poacher villain that you see in every single wildlife movie. Dreamworks are trying to go for the suave and cocky baddie who can charm people into trusting him, but he's not that charismatic or magnetic.
I don't know where you guys rode in from, but in my corral, we treat horses with respect. If you don't like it, you can just move along. Are we clear?
Yes, sir. We're absolutely clear. Sure thing, boss. We didn't mean for it to get out of hand. This Mustang's just got a lot of spirit.
You could argue that he's a good challenge for 3 little girls to face, but even then, once these kids finally take on Hendrix, his crew are conveniently fragile little petals who are easy to defeat. Even Hendrix himself has an anticlimactic end to his reign.
Yeah! Come and get me! No, wait!
I'm one of the few people who will defend this film as a decent movie for little girls who love horses. But Hendrix, he's, well, the only aspect that I can't stand up for. Makonga from Madagascar escaped to Africa. In this first Madagascar sequel, Alex the Lion returns to his family in Africa. Makonga, who has always wanted the throne, insists that Alex takes a lion ritual challenge and tricks Alex into picking the toughest guy to fight, all while mistaking the battle for a dance-off. After Alex loses, he has to be banished by his dad, King Zuba, but His Majesty would rather resign from monarchy, leaving Makonga in charge. But he's very useless and selfish as a leader. Let's not beat around the bush. Makonga is just a Dreamworks clone of Lion King Scar, a vain lion who manipulates the prince and dethrones the king, only to half-arse everything once in power. The only difference is being that Makonga is a little more energetic and doesn't murder another lion. That's it really. Look, I'm not sure how self-aware Dreamworks were about the similarities, but they do have a history of imitating their rival studios. I think what bothers me the most though, is how Zuba ignored all of Makonga's red flags. As soon as we meet Makonga, he makes it extremely loud and obvious that he wants to steal the throne.
You're not challenging me again, are you? Look on the bright side, Zuba. After I defeat you and take over as Alpha Lion, you'll have so much more time to spend with your pathetic excuse of a son.
But this never taught Zuba to be cautious of or banish Makonga. Makonga only rises to the top, not because he's exceptionally smart or strategic, but all thanks to Zuba being lenient and never warning Alex about Makonga's hunger for the throne. Sure, Scar himself was not a subtle villain.
Well, I was first in line, until the little hairball was born.
That hairball is my son.
But at least he kept his actual intentions under his fur.
Is that a challenge?
Temper. I wouldn't dream of challenging you.
Pity.
Gliaxar from Monsters vs. Aliens. Gliaxar is an evil alien who seeks a meteorite that turned a woman called Susan into the supergiantess Ginormica, so that he can create a clone army and destroy Earth with the meteorite's energy. Gliaxar is first introduced inside a giant robot that comes off as effectively imposing, a towering metal machine that brings fear to Earth. However, once our heroes meet him face to face, he's nothing but a series of disappointments. He's nowhere near as funny as Dreamworks maybe thinks. He can be mildly amusing, but the 1 or 2 laughs he got out of me were whisper volume. Plus Rainn Wilson is trying way too hard to be hilarious behind the microphone.
You there. How do I do this? 3 back. No. That guy next to you. The one I'm pointing at. You, the one.
His design isn't interesting either. He just looks like someone's first idea of a generic evil alien scientist, with the gimmick of multiple eyes slapped on top. But the biggest downside to Gliaxar is how underwhelming and easy to beat he is. Every time he tries to pose a threat, it takes a soft tiny tap to knock it down. Ominous security system on his ship? Professor Cockroach just quickly and flawlessly disables it with his conveniently perfect dance talent.
Security protocol breached. Ship has been set to self-destruct.
Large army of clones under Gliaxar's command? Whatever, they're easily fooled by bad disguises, and every single one takes the lightest touch to defeat. Susan has had her powers stolen? No biggie. She takes 1 minute to beat Gliaxar and regains them. He's such an uninspired and flimsy villain that I often forget that he was supposed to be the antagonist of this film. Dr. Irwin Armstrong from Boss Baby 2. Dr. Irwin Armstrong is a respected academic who runs a futuristic school for gifted kids. All is not what it seems though, because we find out that Irwin is actually a baby who was a victim of his parents' baby psychology experiment, and he has plans to hypnotize every parent under his control. Everything about Irwin is just plain weird. First of all, his cover story doesn't really match up with his evil plan. How come he's a teacher at an expensive, fancy school that encourages kids to mature faster, when his whole evil plan is to help kids rule over adults? And hang on, wasn't he annoyed at his parents for overeducating him at an early age? It doesn't really add up. There's also something deeply uncanny about him once he's revealed as a baby. He's really creepy, not in a fun, sinister way, but in a very uncomfortable way.
You could go public and make millions.
Oh, billions.
Billion.
The most off-putting thing about him, though, is the miscasting of Jeff Goldblum as Irwin's voice. Hearing his trademark delivery coming out of this weird little baby man was the nail on the coffin for me. This is not a character that fits in Jeff's wheelhouse too, so you can really hear him phoning it in.
What are you doing? No! Ah! Oh, no! Don't do that! Ah!
Mr. Burnish from Abominable. Burnish is a very wealthy man who was after the legendary Yeti, which has been returned home by a group of kids. As a villain, Mr. Burnish does work as a serious threat, only because he's rich enough to afford advanced drone technology to hunt down the Yeti, and has hired a large team of tough guys to compensate for his fragile old age. I also think that Susie Eddie Izzard's trademark dry British voice fits perfectly for Burnish's stuck-up personality.
What am I going to do? The science community will be there, the press will be there. The world will be there!
My praise for Burnish stops there though. You see, he's introduced as an animal-hating snob who only likes wildlife as decorative furniture or clothes. But when it's revealed that animal specialist Dr. Zara, who has been helping Burnish, is actually the real baddie out to exploit the Yeti, suddenly the film wants Burnish to be the actual good guy. The problem is that this redemption arc comes right out of nowhere. He doesn't have any life-changing experience in the wild, or become convinced by another character's defense for animal rights. He just tells a boy that he's only after the Yeti to confirm their existence, then suddenly he becomes a completely different character out of the blue. At the exact same time when Dr. Zara's twist reveal happens. Yes, earlier in the film he did express his love for a tree, but only for superficial reasons.
It's a wonderful tree. Look at the colors. I love this tree. You there, chop it down and put it in a bag, will you?
Right away, sir.
I want it in my penthouse.
Sure, he does later have a natural epiphany about Yeti's defense instincts and why he shouldn't fear them, but this happens long after his forced change of heart that I mentioned. Burnish has one of the worst villain redemption arcs I've ever seen. It's somehow contrived, yet also randomly sporadic. Dr. Zara from Abominable. Dr. Zara is an animal expert who agrees to help the eccentric and rich Mr. Burnish find a Yeti, under the strict condition that it remains unharmed. However, in a twist reveal, it turns out that Dr. Zara is actually secretly conspiring to sell the Yeti once it's found. Let's just get it out there. Dr. Zara is a bad twist villain. I mean, why on earth is she trying to play the whole nice and sweet animal activist role to Mr. Burnish, when he himself is happy to hate, abuse and exploit animals? She's only playing up with this character for the audience's sake.
Your gerbil is freaking me out.
Jerboa! Duchess is an albino jerboa, and she too is one of a kind.
If anything, she could totally be herself around him, and explain her evil plan up front, so that they're on the same page as villains. He gets to photograph evidence of a Yeti, and she can sell it after. Win-win. Plus, like every terribly executed twist villain, we're given zero foreshadowing to a dark side or secret plans. There's literally no clues to spot on a second viewing to help the twist make sense later. If Dreamworks did leave some hints, I'm sorry, but I think they were way too subtle. Even if you did see it coming, it's most likely because the overly nice character turning out to be evil has become an animated movie cliche now. I will say this though. The film features a deep message about how the persistent upstream swimming of koi fish can inspire perseverance, which the kids use to motivate them to keep moving forward. But the film also shows how evil people can also be like the koi, because Dr. Zara embraces her own perseverance to be relentless in her exploitation of the Yeti.
I thought we had to keep the Yeti alive!
Dead will have to do.
The Fooses from Madagascar. The Fooses are a species of predator in Madagascar who have been tormenting local animals for years, but they back off once Alex the lion arrives, and only strike when Alex isn't around. There's something fun about how deranged these guys are. They're like Ed from The Lion King if he took extra crazy pills. When they're allowed to go after prey, their manic approach to hunting can be entertaining. However, the real threat in the first Madagascar movie is Alex's carnivorous urge to eat his friends. So the Fooses end up playing second fiddle to a lion for most of the movie, which is fine, because Alex's meat craving is the most engaging thing about the film. But it does mean that the Fooses result in being kind of, well, underused, which is a shame, as I did enjoy their Looney Tunes brand of predator versus prey comedy.
Come and get it!
Humpty Dumpty from Puss in Boots. Humpty and Puss were once childhood friends who promised to one day find some magic beanstalk beans. However, once they got older, Puss went on to become a village hero, while Humpty wanted to live the criminal life. One night, Humpty tricked Puss into helping him rob a bank, and Puss bailed on Dumpty once authorities arrived. Years later, Humpty reunites with Puss and offers him a chance to finally find the magic beans. But after a successful mission, it turns out that the eggs had duped Puss all of this time. Much like Dr. Irwin Armstrong, Humpty Dumpty has a creepy uncanny valley design. I don't think it's really possible to make Humpty Dumpty not look nauseatingly weird, especially in CGI. In my Dreamworks sequels video, I praised Humpty's big twist reveal. But the more I've thought about it since, the more stupid it actually seems to me. I mean, come on, of course a deceptive criminal egg who was abandoned by Puss is going to have a personal vendetta. Puss should have seen it coming a mile away.
You set me up.
Oh yeah, set you up, of course. You think this was all about getting the gold and clearing your name? This little adventure was about one thing. Revenge.
The movie also tries to give Humpty a sympathetic angle, but it doesn't work at all for me. Humpty had no right to be mad at Puss for all of these years, because he's the one who sneakily tricked Puss into being a crime accomplice. On the very same day that Puss made it very clear that he wanted to be a hero now, and had retired from crime. Puss didn't owe Humpty anything. Yes, they were blood brothers, but it's entirely Humpty's fault that the sentiment was ruined. In the finale, Humpty threatens to destroy his childhood village by using a kidnapped giant chick as bait to attract its destructive mother. But Puss talks him out of it, and he has a change of heart that leads to a sacrifice. I'm sorry, but only a scene ago, Humpty was prepared to slaughter a whole village just because of a childish grudge against it. He's not some misunderstood troubled man who deserves a second chance. He's a cruel egg who never showed remorse or reluctance until the very last minutes of the film. Prince Charming from Shrek the Third. In Shrek 2, Prince Charming was a key player in Fairy Godmother's royal conspiracy, sort of a sidekick to his mother. In Shrek the Third, Charming vows revenge on Shrek by convincing every villain in Far Away to help capture the ogre, so that he can put on a vanity stage show that'll end with Shrek being executed. As a major villain in Shrek 3, I'd say that Prince Charming is adequate at best. He has his intimidating moments, a funny scene or two, plus it's impressive that his minions are made up of iconic fairy tale baddies. It's just, he's basically the leftover villain of Shrek 2. While Fairy Godmother was a delicious chocolate gâteau served at a fun party, Charming is the disappointing crumbs we find in the fridge the next day. It doesn't help that he also barely ever interacts with Shrek, Fiona and their friends. There's not really a strong villain and hero's dynamic this time round. He spends most of his time rehearsing his dumb play. Even the final showdown between Shrek and Charming is a letdown, because we're just watching the prince Baddie sing while Shrek roasts him.
Prepare, foul beast! Your time is done!
Oh, if you don't mind, could you kill me and then sing?
That's not exactly a satisfying defeat. What happens is Arthur, the true heir to the throne, just makes a big out-of-nowhere speech about personal dreams, and very conveniently, every single fairy tale villain just so happens to have a secret dream, leading to them all surrendering. What annoys me the most though is that Charming did have the potential to be a great Shrek movie villain. At the start of the film, we see him fabricating the life he's always wanted, while envying Shrek's well-earned happy ever after, only to be laughed off stage, and left to grieve the mother he lost. In a film about parenting and the importance of carrying on a legacy, we could have had a Prince Charming who wants to avenge his mother's death, as he questions who he is without her, if she was even a good mum, and what it means to earn a legacy. But nope, we end up with this.
You're about to enter a world of pain with which you are not familiar.
from Kung Fu Panda 3, Kai is an evil ox who escapes the spirit world that he was once trapped in, and plans on stealing every martial arts master's chi by turning him into jade zombies. The third Kung Fu Panda's villain is very intimidating to look at thanks to his bulky ox design, and it is devious how he's collecting jade zombies of masters to do his bidding. I mean, who could ever mess with a baddie who has every fighting legend at his beck and call?
No! Master Porcupine!
I thought he died 100 years ago.
But beyond those novelties, there's not much else to him. The film gives him this whole backstory about how he used to be friends with Oogway, but once they arrived in a panda village, Kai insisted that they should steal every panda's chi. Oogway protested against this atrocious idea, the two fell out, and Kai was sent to the spirit world. Kai frequently mentions Oogway in the film, but their friendship was never really developed in their flashback scene. So this supposed rivalry comes off as flat and hollow, giving Kai very fanficky vibes.
I fought by his side. I loved him like a brother. And he betrayed me.
I also found it underwhelming that our bad guy's whole sub-story is, my friend wouldn't enslave a village with me, wah wah wah. It makes him come off as whiny and bratty. And when it doesn't help that the film makes him the butt of the joke a lot, which dampens his menace and threat as a villain.
I'm going to take your chi, then the chi of every panda in the...
Chit chat.
In this...
Chitty chitty chat 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 chat.
In this...
Look, I'm all for mocking and humiliating the bad guy, especially one this arrogant, but this villain is still meant to be the ultimate foe for the Dragon Warrior. Let him still be scary in his own right. Sorry Kung Fu Panda 3 fans, but I find Kai to be the worst villain in the trilogy. Captain Smek from Home. Captain Smek is the leader of the Boofs, who are on the run from a race of scary aliens called the Gorgs. Smek convinces the Boofs that it's okay to conquer Earth, because Boofs are superior to humanity, and apparently know what's best for them. However, when a rather free-spirited Boof called O sends a party invite to the universe, Smek orders for O's capture. O reluctantly teams up with a human girl called Tip, as they go on an adventure to stop O's email, and reunite Tip with her mum. As the two bond together, O starts to question Smek's regime. It then turns out that the Gorg are actually just trying to retrieve their babies, which Smek stole from them to turn into his shushing stick. Smek is an arrogant tyrant obsessed with self-presentation and creating a folklore that suits him, fabricated propaganda that paints cowardice as noble and the Boof as higher beings. It actually took my second watch to realise that his character is an allegory for entitled colonialism.
Rejoice, humans people, the Boof are arrived. Now we are turning off your gravity temporarily so as to make your mandatory relocation easier and more fun.
Is he a good villain? Well, I think he's fine. A perfectly acceptable antagonist who fits into the tone of what Home is going for. He certainly knows how to command himself, being very protective of his position, and using his shushing stick to silence anyone who thinks for themselves. I wouldn't exactly say that he's funny, because his humour is limited to the same culture shock joke again and again, plus his voice actor, comedian Steve Martin, is not in his A-game, but young kids will laugh at these silly misunderstandings of human culture.
Look at all the great stuff they've got. Like this, a headband, and for evening wear, you slide it down, you got a beautiful spare tire.
While he is deservedly overthrown in the movie's finale, it's weird how this tyrannical fascist is casually DJing in the end party sequence, and not in jail or something. That definitely threw me off. Overall, Smek is a possible Dreamworks villain who works well as a foil to Tip and O's rebellion, while also teaching kids that power can be abused, and that everyone has the right to be a free-thinking individual. Nana from Madagascar 2. In the first Madagascar movie, Nana was just a one-off slapstick gag, but in Madagascar 2, she's a more prominent character. To be specific, an elder who ends up leading a community of New York tourists lost in Africa. On the one hand, it's kind of inspiring seeing this old feisty lady taking command of a whole tribe, as she uses her aged experience and New York attitude to lead everyone to survival.
Gather round, children. We're New Yorkers, right?
Yeah.
We survived the concrete jungle.
That's right.
When we need food, we hunt for a decent hot dog stand. Am I right?
On the other hand, from our hero's perspective, she makes for one demented antagonist, made all the more powerful by the fact that she's a chief to a bunch of scared New Yorkians.
Having speed!
Bring it on!
A shining moment, though, is when she gets to be the one to punish Makonga. It's pretty satisfying to watch an actual badass beat up a cowardly monarch. the chef from Trolls. This chef is responsible for cooking trolls for the miserable Bergens, but when all of the trolls escape, she's fired and banished. Years later, she returns with kidnapped trolls and regains her job. Even though I think that Trolls is one of Dreamworks' biggest low points, I have to say that it does have a good villain. There is something unique about a baddie who keeps their power through cooking of all things, something that we associate with passion, love and warmth. It's also kind of impressive that this royal chef has managed to convince every single Bergen that only her troll recipes can make them happy, so that they all feel dependent on her, resulting in the Bergens becoming a miserable society who have been deluded into thinking that they're sad. There's something compelling about watching her rise back to the top too, and how she holds on tightly to the job that she lost for a decade. She takes delightful joy in not only swindling the new king.
What exactly are you proposing? Bringing back Trollstis? For everyone?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm proposing.
Great idea, sire. Absolutely brilliant.
But also having her very own handmaid to abuse as a slaving assistant.
Scullery maid! Wash these pots and pans for Trollstis.
The Bergen chef won't go down in history as one of the greatest animated movie villains ever, but I do think that she's a very original idea for a movie baddie who happens to be stuck in an uninspired film. The Spiny Mandrilla from The Croods too. Nothing much really happens in The Croods A New Age, except domestic squabbling and overbearing parenting. However, towards the end of the film, the guys are offered as a sacrifice to a giant spiny mandrilla, and it's up to the women to come rescue them. We're basically watching cave punk girls riding spider wolves as they take on a uniquely designed kaiju with primate strength. At long last, the film finally raises its stakes, giving us a villain who looms over our heroes, making all of the prehistoric monsters they fought before seem cute. The Mandrilla goes to show that a movie baddie doesn't need to have a complex story or deep motive to be good. They could just be King Kong on steroids. This beast outmatches the cave folk so much that they're forced to put aside their childish arguing and work together as a team to beat it, while facing the constant imposing threat of being eaten alive. Wazaleka from Joseph King of Dreams. When Joseph is sold as a slave to the esteemed Potiphar, Potiphar's wife, Wazaleka becomes creepily infatuated with her husband's new prisoner. Joseph rejects Wazaleka's advances though, so she lies to her husband by telling him that Joseph tried assaulting her, which angers Potiphar, who sends Joseph to the dungeons. While Wazaleka only gets a few scenes, I think it's worth praising her inclusion, because she's a prime example of how some older women can be narcissistic predators towards younger men. A concerning fact that mainstream media doesn't touch on enough. She has this horrible sense of entitlement and becomes terrifyingly aggressive when she doesn't get her way.
No!
Wait! No. I order you to stay.
No!
Everything you are, you owe to me!
Then she uses fake crying to play damsel in distress, and whoops the narrative of Joseph being the assailant.
It's not what it seems. I could never betray you, Master.
Such insolence! Am I to believe a slave over my own wife?
Jack and Jill from Puss in Boots. Jack and Jill are a pair of in-love villains that are on a quest to find the treasure of the beanstalk, the very same adventure that the dashing Puss in Boots is taking. However, in a twist reveal, we learn that they're partners with Puss's accomplice, Humpty Dumpty. What I like about these two is that they're more invested in their romance and family life than Humpty's complicated scheme. Despite being complete crooks, they act like any other couple facing relationship bridges.
Well, that we cut down on some of the hijacking and murdering. I mean, it's fun and all, but, I want a baby.
Saying that though, they do make for very imposing antagonists against our heroic feline. They're big and brutish characters who strike fear wherever they go, and will step into action when crossing paths with Puss.
See, I told you I wouldn't let you down!
You think this is over?
Hey, that was close!
Like a lot of things in this film though, they're not exactly memorable. If you asked me to list off Shrek villains off the top of my head, I'd most likely forget to mention Jack and Jill. They're amusing, but not hilarious. Physically imposing, but not particularly scary. Quirky, but not that strange. They're effective obstacles on Puss's journey for sure, I just wouldn't say that they're in the same league as far superior baddies in this film series. Montgomery from B-Movie. Montgomery is very much every stereotype of a courtroom movie villain lawyer wrapped into one. A southern-drawled crook who weasels up biased arguments and manipulative accusations in a desperate bid to defend his rich clients. Dreamworks have a lot of fun embracing the inherent silliness of this particular trope. They know he's a classic archetype in full swing.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my grandmother was a simple woman. Born on a farm, she believed it was man's divine right to benefit from the bounty of nature God put before us.
I can't say that Montgomery is the highlight of every courtroom scene, because we can enjoy booing his conniving and sneaky tactics. Plus, his attempt at riling up a bee into stinging him is so stupidly ridiculous that you can't help but laugh.
Oh, I'm here! Oh, Lord, I'm here! Order! The venom! The venom is coursing through my veins!
Mr. Montgomery!
I have been failed by a winged beast of destruction!
And it gets even weirder when he returns to court in a baby bouncer? I guess you could argue that he's sort of maybe a straw man in the whole bee rights debate. And I do personally wish that he presented more challenging arguments to test our hero's team, but it's important and fair to remember that he is the one who warns the bees about the consequences to their new retirement.
This is an unholy perversion of the balance of nature, Vincent. You'll regret this.
A prophecy that later rears its ugly head. Professor Marmalade from the Bad Guys. The Professor is a philanthropist who volunteers to help change the notorious Bad Guys, a gang of heisting crooks. But in a turn of events, we realise that he's actually been using the Bad Guys as patsies in his own evil science plans. Now, Marmalade isn't exactly a clever twist villain. As soon as he's introduced, he seems way too friendly.
You have to understand, I didn't bring hope back to the city for an award. I did these good things because of how they made me feel.
I did find Marmalade's scheme to be a bit too complicated and contrived as well. However, this is a heist film, a film genre known for its surprise twists and convoluted plans, so you could argue that these things were inevitable. This twist does work very effectively into the movie's message too. The scary looking characters can be good people, and cute nice people can be manipulatively deceptive.
Looks like, yet again, the big bad wolf got outsmarted by little piggy.
You little pouchy cheeked rat! I'll kill you! You hear me? Get down! Get down!
The big bad wolf is attacking me!
And when comedian Richard Irwin is fantastic at playing up Marmalade's friendliness at the start, then going full British ham once the jig is up.
You see, I never cared about what's good, only what's good for me. Like, say, $1 billion. Ooh, I just got a tingle.
Marmalade may be a predictable twist villain, but he still pays off really well as the true antagonist of the bad guy story. Dwayne LaFontaine from Over the Hedge. Dwayne, who goes by the nickname the Verminator, is a professional pest exterminator who is hired to eliminate a family of wild animals who have been invading a suburban neighbourhood. He's a very cocky guy who thinks he's cooler than he really is. At first, we assume that he's going to be a complete idiot who is all bark and no bite, but it's revealed that he's actually got skills.
Alright, what am I up against here? Possum, porcupine, skunk, squirrel, raccoon, amphibian, reptile. No, reptile.
It's his accurate animal tracking and willingness to use illegal traps that make him an authentic threat to our heroes. He knows exactly what he's doing and isn't afraid to break ethics or laws to make his kills.
Adios, animal infestation.
Oh my.
Dwayne is still a comedic villain though, so he can make humorous mistakes. His biggest weakness is his vain arrogance, and his need to look cool despite being a nerd with a comb over is what leads to his downfall.
Large birdie! Birdie! Flee, my love!
I can't say that he's laugh out loud hilarious to me, because his reactions to losing aren't as crazy as they could have been, but I guess his comeuppance is chuckle worthy.
Go! Play? Oh no. No, no. No, no. Go!
Guy Gagne from Turbo. Guy is a renowned race car driver who totally loves soaking in his fame and popularity. When a little nitro-powered snail called Turbo wants to enter the Indy 500, Guy decides to use the speedy gastropod's viral attention to boost his own career by vouching for Turbo's right to speedway race. However, Guy refuses to let the snail actually win first place. I'll admit that this character kind of faded from my memory soon after watching Turbo for the first time, but upon my rewatch, I do think he's a decent sports movie baddie. He's not a straightforward rival to our hero. He's Turbo's inspiration, naysayer, and enemy, all rolled into one. He motivated the snail to live his dreams, but later goes on to crush them once they meet.
Well, the sad truth is, underdogs seldom win. And dreamers? Let's just say, eventually, they have to wake up.
As egocentric as he is, you have to respect his intelligence when it comes to marketing. Most racers would have just waved off Turbo's virality, or stepped on him if he tried racing, but Guy exploits Turbo for a chance to expand his fame beyond the racing fanbase.
Thank you, plucky snail. Because of you, the whole world will be watching this race. And when the checker flag drops, they'll be watching me win.
When the actual race comes around, Guy knows that he can't just kill off Turbo on camera, that'd be bad for his image, so he smoothly and organically creates obstacles for the snail.
That rubber peeling off the tires can be a minefield for these drivers.
Here we go.
However, once Turbo finds his groove, suddenly Guy becomes relentless to win. Guy's panic over possibly losing to a tiny snail pushes him to forget all subtlety, as he literally drags his broken car towards the finishing line and lets his foot go crazy at Turbo. Is it silly to look at? Is it over the top? Is it strange? Oh yeah, sure. But what do you expect from a racing snail movie? And isn't the appeal of animation seeing weird reality-defining stuff like this? Queen Barb from Trolls World Tour. Barb is the queen of the rock nation in the world of the trolls, and she plans to replace all music genres with her personal favourite music style. To be frank, making a metalhead into the villain of your musical is low-hanging fruit to me. Metalheads are already unfairly demonized by the media, even though most of them are lovely people. Oh, and it's such a predictable, creative choice. It would have been way more fun to see a different genre being villainized. Despite this complaint, I have to say that Barb is the most interesting character in the Trolls franchise, a Dreamworks series that tends to play things safe and cutesy. She has a dope punk design, a sick voice, and a fiery personality.
As you probably know, I'm bringing a tidal wave of rock across this land of ours. And soon there will be nothing but hard rock as far as the ear can hear.
She epitomizes everything terrible about gatekeeping music snobs do. Someone who thinks that their taste in music trumps everyone else's, and is obsessed with changing everyone's minds about what makes good music. However, she's not some boring straw woman. The film does let her defend metal music, and even fairly criticize the flaws of pop music.
Pop music isn't even real music! It's bland! It's repetitive! The lyrics are empty!
The film tries to show that there's more to her too, that she feels pressured and lonely as a busy queen surrounded by yes people.
Being queen can be kinda lonely. There's all this pressure to be a great queen. And instead of real friends, you're just surrounded by people who just tell you what you want to hear.
Which leads to Poppy swaying her into respecting and understanding how united music genres can create beautiful harmony. The thing is though, I can't really say that I was fully sold on her redemption arc, because it's a tad tricky to forgive someone who previously trashed innocent worlds, kidnapped political leaders, and tried to brainwash people into being metalhead zombies. Barb is definitely the best Trolls character, but she's not without her criticism. The Colonel from Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron. When a group of men capture a wild stallion called Spirit, their arrogant colonel insists that he can break the horse, but he deeply underestimates Spirit's strength and determination. The conflict between Colonel and Spirit is the central tension of this movie, and boy is it compelling to watch. The back and forth struggle for command is so gripping to follow.
Sometimes a horse has got to do what a horse has got to do. And this was one of those times.
The Colonel very much represents the antithesis of what this film is all about, the right to freedom. He has dedicated his career to overpowering others, namely Native Americans. and has finally found a challenge in Spirit. This villain is even cruel enough to starve and force Spirit into submission, all because he can't stand the idea of failing to tame a wild animal. When Spirit escapes with Native American prisoner Little Creek, the Colonel is enraged, so much so that he barbarically attacks Little Creek's village. The Colonel isn't a brave soldier. He's a bully with a fragile and easily bruised ego. Fun fact, the Colonel is loosely based on Colonel Custer, a historical figure who became an American hero, but was actually a conceited fool who gained all of his legend from fabricated folklore. In the finale, Spirit and Little Creek have a final chase against the military, which leads to our heroes making a leap of faith. And they actually hit that landing? This impresses the Colonel so much that he chooses to bow out of the chase. While I would have very much liked a satisfying comeuppance for a horrible villain, it is badass how our heroes were so cool that they inspired the baddie to just give up. Gladys from Over the Hedge. Gladys is the president of the Homeowners Association and a major threat to a family of animals trying to survive off suburban groceries. Back in the day, you could call Gladys a cartoony caricature, but over the years, social media has exposed this trope as a very real, everyday type of person in our society. A high-maintenance middle-class woman who has based her whole identity on her privileged living, all while feeling entitled to hurt others under the guise of concern for safety.
I'm sorry, Janice. Did I just hear them say rabid squirrel?
Oh, I think they might just be overreacting.
But what if they're not? What if we have a potential pandemic on our hands? Vermin running loose, spreading disease, and lowering our property values?
She claims to be caring towards animals, but she treats all wildlife as inherently dangerous, and is even willing to buy illegal pest control traps to brutally kill any animals who enter her yard, even though her beloved neighborhood was built over these creatures' natural homes. Once the animals break into her house, Gladys abandons her desperate need to seem classy and goes on a wild rampage.
A weed hacker, bird! A weed hacker!
Yeah! Show your little rat faces! I'll be triggered!
For someone who wants to seem responsible and mature to her neighbors, she's clearly an unhinged woman hiding behind a polite mask.
Officer, please! It was that Verminator! He sold it to me! This has nothing to do with me!
Hey, it was in your yard, your name's on the contract, so you can tell it to the judge.
No! It's not my fault! Let go of me!
Ma'am.
I can't be arrested!
Excuse me.
I'm president of the Homeowners Association!
Francis from Boss Baby. This baddie was once an admired businessman at Baby Corp, but he turned out to be lactose intolerant, which meant that he couldn't keep drinking the formula that keeps babies young. So, years later, he vows revenge on Baby Corp and plans to steal their cuteness thunder with forever puppies using their formula. I've often forgotten that the first Boss Baby even had a villain, and I don't know why, because he's a decent antagonist for a silly but sentimental film. His story of being replaced by a younger baby is both a commentary on unfair ageism in the workplace, whether intentional or not, and a mirror reflection of Tim's own feelings after getting a new baby brother, Ted. Francis is sly enough to notice this too, and even tries buttering up Tim to coerce sympathy out of him.
All of a sudden, she got all the love, all the attention. You know how that feels, don't you, Tim? It hurts, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
He really is a very tactical and strategic villain. He takes advantage of the fact that our hero's parents work for him, knows that taking away Ted's magic baby formula will make him useless against him in the finale, and uses his big gruff brother as an effective minion who can disguise himself as the boy's nanny.
Don't be nervous, buddy.
It's only overnight.
We'll be back before you know it.
Besides, you boys are in great hands.
When I first saw Boss Baby, I wrote it off as a dumb film, but over time, I've grown to admire its positives, Francis being one of them. Cortez from The Road to El Dorado. Based on the real-life herding Cortez, this villain is a callous colonizer who wants to slay the people of El Dorado and feels entitled to their gold. Now, yes, Cortez only appears at the beginning and the end of this film, but dang does he have an intimidating and memorable presence. While our heroes are flamboyant goofballs who are pranksters at worst, Cortez is a serious and threatening conqueror who you do not want to upset. His large build and deep timbre voice make him one imposing baddie. Plus, there's something deeply upsetting about how cold and emotionless he sounds when making cruel commands. villains.
You will be flogged. And when we put into Cuba to resupply, God willing, you will be flogged some more. And then enslaved on the sugar plantations for the rest of your miserable lives.
He's so intimidating that even El Dorado's own sorcerer, Zakul Khan, cowers beneath him, mistaking him for a legendary evil god from his own scriptures, only for him to face Cortez's wrath when he fails to bring him to El Dorado.
Men, seize him. There is no El Dorado here.
Vincent from Over the Hedge. When RJ the raccoon tries to steal Vincent the bear's hoarded human snacks, he accidentally destroys them all, so Vincent demands that RJ steals more food for him before a strict deadline. RJ, panicked and desperate, decides to con some naive forest critters into helping him ransack a neighborhood's groceries. Out of every Over the Hedge villain, Vincent is definitely the most imposing, with his rough, growling voice, towering size, and dominating personality.
Full moon, all my stuff. And don't even think about running away, because if you do, I will hunt you down and kill you.
There's not a single empathetic bone in his body, too. RJ can't just ask for simple forgiveness or hope for some extra time. It's Vincent's intimidating stature and presence that really helps to add tension to RJ's goal and make us understand why he feels so threatened. Heck, RJ is so tormented by the impending deadline that he ends up having a scary nightmare of what the bear will do to him if he fails his task.
You're cool. Wagon.
Time's up, RJ.
But I have 6 more days! No!
But I think the most interesting thing about Vincent is how he's not that much different from the film's lead raccoon. Much like Vincent, RJ has become a lone rodent who only cares about himself, and will only interact with other wildlife if there's a benefit. Vincent's mistake was making RJ realize this.
You said it yourself. You're a family of one. Always will be. It's how guys like you and me survive.
Because it gives him the epiphany to change himself and become less like Vincent.
You don't need them.
Actually, I do. And right now, they really need me. So I really need this!
Edwina Grunion from Mr. Peabody and Sherman. Edwina is a pompous social worker who is brought in to investigate a case in which little girl Penny was bitten by a boy called Sherman after she called him a dog. It's down to Sherman's father, Mr. Peabody, to straighten things out with his natural charm. Edwina might not be as powerful or menacing as other Dreamworks villains, but she's still an incredibly frustrating baddie that you'll enjoy resenting. She's in a position of responsibility to kids, but it's more than obvious that she's letting her bigotry towards dogs get in the way. Heck, she's so biased that she ends up trying to justify awful school bullying.
I'm sure he must have had a reason.
Well, the girl was being a bit of a bully. Quiet, Purdy! It's normal for children to tease. It's not normal for them to bite.
Oh, and even when Penny tries to defend Sherman, her feelings are completely ignored, because that is not what really matters to Miss Grunion. Edwina is annoyingly old-fashioned when it comes to family structure too, even though the idea of what family means has changed over time.
In my opinion, a dog can never be a suitable parent to a little boy.
In the grand scheme of things, she plays a small part in a film that's mainly about a time travel adventure, but the movie makes great use out of her short screen time, from being overjoyed when Mr. Peabody bites her to protect Sherman, because she sneakily knows exactly what this means for her agenda.
He bit me! He bit me! Yes, hello, police? I'd like to report an assault.
To being a huge threat towards Peabody and Sherman because she has the power to divide them as a family.
For too long you bamboozled the world with your fancy jargon and that little red tie of yours, and look what's come of it. Take him away!
Wait!
Plus, a weird obsession with detaining Peabody is putting the world at jeopardy, because only Peabody can save a collapsing space and time right now. Miss Grunion really is the epitome of what can happen when someone corrupt and prejudiced achieves a role of authority in society. Dave from the Penguins of Madagascar. Dave is a mad scientist who plans to mutate every penguin in the world, because he envies their popularity as cute fluffy birds. I really like how expressive Dave is as a villain. Dreamworks totally embraced the squishy and floppy nature of octopi to give us a rubbery baddie who just about squeezes tightly into a weird human disguise.
Humans know me as Dr. Octavius Brine. renowned geneticist, cheese enthusiast, and frequent donor to NPR pledge drives.
Speaking of which, it is quite clever that Dave has a said disguise, because it helps him to slip into human society while pulling off his villainy.
Penguin lovers of the world! Guess who I found? Penguins! Penguins! It wasn't easy, but seeing the penguins get what they deserve will make it all worthwhile.
He's also the perfect rival for the penguins, not just because his evil scheme is very personal against penguin kind, but his over-serious personality entertainingly contrasts against our goofball heroes too.
The only thing that has kept me going all these years is my burning thirst for revenge!
And my precious souvenir snow globe collection.
Ah! What is wrong with you?
Dave is also a very misguided character. It's clear that short attention span humans are to blame for his dying popularity, but he pins all the fault on happy-go-lucky penguins. Dave's descent into penguin hatred really distracts him from the bigger picture. To me, Dave is the ideal antagonist for a Penguins of Madagascar spin-off movie, and remains one of Dreamworks' best comedy movie villains.
Where's the sound?
Dave, your microphone, it's not
on.
Click on
the button with the picture of the microphone.
Every time a villain calls in, this happens.
Hello? Hello?
Well, now we
can
hear you, but
we cannot see you.
Every time.
So we're halfway through this video. I'd just like to remind folks to consider subscribing to my YouTube channel for more exciting animation related content. Thank you. The Red Death from How to Train Your Dragon. Red Death is the alpha of every dragon, and has been commanding his loyal followers to steal him dinner from the Vikings. When stubborn Viking chief Stoic charges into the dragon's nest, he's shocked to learn how huge and strong Red Death really is. So Hiccup and his friends hop on their own dragons to show Stoic how helpful dragon pets can really be. Most of the dragons in the first How to Train Your Dragon film can be kind of threatening, but none of them come close to Red Death's presence. As soon as we meet this alpha dragon, we are taken back, because it makes every other dragon look like an ant. Plus, they have no charming animalistic characteristics, and a more hyper-detailed design. Red Death's existence doesn't just show Stoic that he was wrong about dragons' intentions all along, but also serves as the ultimate final boss in a film full of human versus dragon fights. This alpha dragon is the epitome of a tyrant. A selfish and feral monster who doesn't care about protecting dragonkind and just wants to use their hypnotic power for free meals. Even worse, it'll happily eat any dragon who underdelivers. Our hero's battle against this alpha dragon is the perfect test of everything they've learned.
Left, legs, hang in his blind spot, make some noise, keep it confused. Rough, tough, find out if it has a shard limit, make it mad.
Defeating this brute won't just end all dragon attacks on Berg, it'll also free the dragons from their abusive leader. Victor Quartermaine from Wallace and Gromit and the Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Quartermaine is a professional hunter who wants to marry the kindly Lady Tottington to expand his wealth. But he feels challenged when Totty falls for inventor Wallace, who is running a humane pest control service. However, when it's revealed that Wallace is actually the rumoured Were-Rabbit, Victor plans to kill Wallace and become a local hero. I will say that Quartermaine is a bit too similar to Disney's Gaston, and the comparisons are hard to ignore. And when I can't exactly say that his deception skills are impressive, because the naive Totty seems pretty easy to trick. Despite these little minor flaws, I have come to appreciate all his qualities as a villain. For starters, Aardman has a lot of fun portraying him as this pantomime-style baddie, a scenery-chewing caricature who we can have fun booing whenever he comes on screen. While he lacks the same level of menace as other Wallace and Gromit villains, there's no denying how evil he is as a character. I mean, he's totally happy to murder Wallace, even though he's an innocent victim to a curse, and means no harm.
You knew it was Wallace all along!
Yeah. All right. So what if it is that blithering idiot? No one will ever believe you.
Quartermaine can also be seen as the anti-Wallace. While Wallace is a working-class everyman with a compassion to animals and a genuine affection for Lady Totty, Quartermaine is a gun-toting upper-class crook who relishes in chances to kill animals and just sees Totty as a trophy wife.
I know your little secret, Pesto. I know exactly what's going on.
Your lordship!
Oh yes, you think you can pilfer my filly, don't you? You think you can con an innocent woman out of her fortune?
Oh, me?
But I got here first.
Credit where it's due too. Quartermaine can be an intelligent villain. As trigger-happy as Quartermaine is, he doesn't rush into his hunt for Wallace unprepared. He actually goes out of his way to research were-rabbits and learn that they can be defeated with gold bullets. Oh, and he knows that his biggest obstacle in all of this is Wallace's loyal and brave dog Gromit, which is why he's cleverly eager to prevent the Beagle from saving the day.
Your loyalty is moving. Sadly, you won't be.
The Toad from Flushed Away. The Toad is a pretentious and grandiose sewer-dwelling baddie from Dreamworks' last collab with Aardman. I can't exactly say that Toad is a laugh riot or particularly menacing, but he is entertaining in his own flavour. There's a joy to be had from how pompous he is.
Hello, Rita.
Hello, handsome.
And who is this? Is your new boyfriend a waiter?
Boyfriend?
Waiter?
The prize returns to me.
Oh, and his pride over his London knick-knack collection is endearing, because he thinks that all of these tacky gift shop novelties are museum-worthy.
My shrine to beauty. Works of high art crafted in tribute to our beloved royal family. Victoria's bust, wrought in porcelain.
Classy.
Quite lifelike, wouldn't you say?
It's his overall motives and ultimate villain plan that compel me the most though. You see, he was once Prince Charles's favourite pet, but he was replaced by a rat. Now, he plans to open the sewer's floodgates to drown every rat, so that he can repopulate this society with his own amphibious children, and rule over as the royalty he stubbornly thinks he still is. It's a pretty dang dark evil plan, especially for a film that's quite goofy. It fits into the movie's theme of classism too, a pampered upper-class Toad who looks down on the working-class rats so much that he's willing to commit genocide against them and turn their homes into his own dystopian utopia.
Wave! Wave! No! Giant wave!
General Mindable from Ants. The General is an authoritarian ant who plans to wipe out all of the worker ants and the Queen so that he can start his very own colony made up of only strong soldiers. There's something deeply eerie about how robotic Mindable is. His mind is primarily focused on the fanfare of military tradition, and he's totally happy to find any excuse to start a war. You can't reason with him or change his mind.
Sacrifice. To some, it is just a word. To others, it is a code.
Geez, I'm really bad at word games.
A soldier knows that the life of an individual ant doesn't matter. What matters is the colony. He's willing to live for the colony, to fight for the colony, to die for the colony.
Even his own fiancée fails to bring out any sincere or affectionate emotion from him, because to Mindable, she's just a breeding partner for his ant supremacy project.
How was your day? Anything interesting happen?
We declared war.
Declared war.
His obsession with soldier elitism makes him resent worker ants, because they aren't perfect enough for his vision of a military cult. Hence why he has the horrifying plan to drown them all to death.
Get back to work.
What's that noise?
Uh-oh. Let's get out of here! Run!
But the General is also skilled at knocking down anyone who challenges his regime. When the film's protagonist, Z, becomes a folklore hero to the working class, a revolution is started, but Mindable calmly and confidently smashes the Z mythos into shattered pieces.
I mean, if this Z cares so much about us, then why isn't he here? I'll tell you why. Because Z doesn't give a damn about us.
General Mindable is a cold and calculated warmonger who is going insane. He really is one of the darkest Dreamworks villains ever created.
4 more days, and we can bid final farewell to their kind of incompetence.
Yes, sir.
A fresh start.
Oh, wait a second, I've just realised that there's 2 Dreamworks films about a villain trying to drown poor people with a flood. Don Lino from Shark Tale. Don Lino is a highly respected godfather shark who is greatly feared across the ocean. He has 2 sons called Frankie and Lenny, who the Don is excited to pass his business down to, but he feels conflicted over Lenny's vegetarianism. When Frankie is suddenly killed by a falling anchor, legend is spread that he was murdered by Oscar the Shark Slayer, who teams up with a runaway Lenny to stage his death so that he can start a new life as a dolphin. All of this makes Don Lino enraged and vengeful. While Don Lino certainly has a favourite son, and a hard time accepting a vegetarian kid, he's actually a very passionate father, going as far as firing an associate when he insults Lenny.
Huh?
That's it. That's it. You are out.
He's a criminal gangster, but also a family man through and through. You can tell that losing both of his sons has crushed him.
Oh, Lenny. Don't worry, boss. I said some things to him. We gotta find him.
Heck, when Don Lino meets Oscar, he seems genuinely upset that the supposed Shark Slayer made things this personal.
Hey, Don, Lino, sir, listen, it's not his fault. This is between you and me.
What did I ever do to you? You took Frankie away, and you turned Lenny into a dolphin!
Once Oscar is outed, and Lenny's disguise is exposed, Don Lino drops his classy persona and goes on a pretty intense rampage towards the fish. There's a reason why this guy has scared and threatened his way to the top.
You're gonna regret the day you became the Shark Slayer!
It's only when the father and son are clamped down in the whale wash that they find the courage to open up to each other. What I find interesting is that Lenny has been very queer-coded throughout the film, so you can easily see this vegetarianism plotline as a metaphor for a father learning to accept his LGBT+ son.
So your son likes kelp. So his best friend's a fish. So he likes to dress like a dolphin. So what? Everybody loves him just the way he is. Why can't you?
Don Lino is intimidatingly scary, but deeply sensitive, ethically corrupt, yet sympathetically misguided. It's these complicated and messy contradictions that make him such an interesting Dreamworks villain to me. Zakul Khan from The Road to El Dorado. When two Spanish guys called Tulio and Miguel discover the city of El Dorado, they're mistaken for gods by the high priest Zakul Khan. Tulio and Miguel have fun pretending to be gods and bask in their golden gifts. However, Zakul Khan keeps nagging the two to be more violent as gods, which really annoys Tulio and Miguel, and they stand their ground against any sacrifices. But Zakul Khan notices that Miguel is bleeding, something gods apparently can't do. The Road to El Dorado is a pretty light-hearted and zany buddy comedy, but Zakul Khan gives the film a dark edge. What makes him sinister is his disturbing obsession with the violent aspects of his religion. It's like he only cherry-picks the scriptures that justify killing and frame gods as bloodthirsty demons. He preaches how the innocent citizens of El Dorado are all sinful heathens who should be wiped out, yet he's the only one in the city with all the red flags and a wild desire to murder.
Now, do you wish to have your victims bound to an altar, or would you prefer them free range? And will you be devouring their essence whole, or piece by piece?
As twisted and warped as Zakul Khan is though, there's some entertaining humour to how expressive he can be, and his reactions of disappointment or defeat can be funny. And I love his ongoing rivalry with El Dorado's chief. The chief is a very laid-back dude who just wants to be a humble host to his guests, while Zakul Khan does everything he can to sway Tulio and Miguel into making dark choices. There's a lot of fun to the back and forth competing between these two, because the chief will always rub his wins in Zakul Khan's face.
Smile while you can.
While the film is vague about the existence of real gods, it does establish Zakul Khan as a sorcerer of the dark arts. He'll use this magic to create theatrical macabre illusions to entice the gods to do evil, only to then later use the same practice to conjure up a giant stone jaguar in an effort to expose the gods as fakes, which inspires a very exciting finale. Ken, from B-Movie. Ken is the jealous boyfriend of florist Vanessa, who is helping Barry the Bee sue humanity for taking the bee's honey. He is, without a doubt, bloody hilarious. A smug and pompous man who has a habit of exaggerating his bravado and talent.
I predicted global warming. I could feel it getting hotter. First I thought it was just me.
At first, Barry is just a pest to him, but the closer Vanessa gets to Barry, the more Ken begins to seriously resent the little bee as a third wheel. Imagine being so insecure in yourself that you see a blooming bug as competition.
That's where I usually sit. Right there.
That's the appeal of Ken as a villain. He just looks ridiculous being this angry and vengeful towards a buzzy bumblebee.
I think something stinks in here!
I love the smell of flowers.
Yeah? How do you like the smell of flames?
Not as much.
What's funny too is that his reactions to the whole love triangle mirrors the audience, who are most likely just as weirded out by the whole bee-ex-human chemistry.
He's just a little bee, and he happens to be the nicest bee I've met in a long time.
Long time? What are you talking about?
However, it's iconic voice actor Patrick Warburton's brilliant performance as Ken that makes him truly unforgettable, because he delivers every line with this hysterical melodrama. He's gut-punchingly funny.
Listen, you better go, because we're really busy working.
But it's our yogurt night.
Oh, bye-bye.
Oh. Why is yogurt night so difficult?
Professor Poopy Pants from Captain Underpants. Poopy Pants is a mad scientist who is hired as a science teacher at George and Harold School. But his teaching gig is actually a cover-up while he focuses on his real passion, ridding the world of laughter. Why? Because he resents being laughed at for his name. The professor isn't exactly clever at hiding his evil, but that's kind of the point. For someone who whinges and whines about wanting to be taken seriously, Poopy Pants is rather immature and childish.
Let the poopageddon begin!
Instead of embracing the silliness of his name and learning to laugh at himself, he tries desperately hard to be seen as a cool and intellectual science genius. In reality, only the truly insecure go out of their way to convince people that they're impervious to ridicule or roasting.
Why are you laughing? I've invented a shrinking and enlarging ray. I should be famous. I should be dating models twice my size and doing the talk show circuit.
While Poopy Pants is very much played for laughs, there is something creepy about his evil scheme of turning kids into humorless zombies, especially when our lead heroes depend on comedy to fight back against Poopy Pants.
Still give you the chuckles now? Poopy Pants?
I don't get it. Why is that funny?
Perfect!
While the captain celebrates the wacky nature of his superhero gimmick and wears his silliness with pride, the professor's obsession with fabricating a hip scientist persona for himself just makes him defensive and miserable. It's why he's the perfect rival to the jolly himbo Mr. Underpants. Lord Farquaad from Shrek. Farquaad is the Lord of Duloc, but he wants to be king. So he uses a magic mirror to pick a queen, finally deciding on Princess Fiona. However, Fiona is trapped in a dragon-guarded castle, so Farquaad holds a contest for a champion to take on the quest to rescue the princess. But an ogre called Shrek suddenly turns up. He's annoyed that Farquaad has banished every fairy tale creature to his swamp. After Shrek beats up all of Duloc's knights, Farquaad makes a deal with the ogre. If Shrek can deliver Fiona to him as his queen, then he'll remove the fairy tale creatures from the ogre's swamp. Unexpectedly though, Shrek ends up falling in love with Princess Fiona. Once he comes to terms with his feelings, he bravely interrupts Farquaad's wedding to confess them to Fiona. Then, Fiona reveals that she's been cursed to turn into an ogre every sunset. Now sure, I do think that there are better villains in the Shrek universe, but Farquaad still deserves to be remembered as Shrek's first worthy foe, especially in a film about Shrek learning to express his feelings and empathize with his fellow mistreated outcasts. I mean, there's something unnerving and almost Nazi-esque to Farquaad's desire to segregate fairy tale characters, unless they have personal use to him, going as far as to brutally torture and dismember one of them in his dungeon.
Run, run, run as fast as you can. You can't catch me. I'm the gingerbread man!
You're a monster!
I'm not the monster here, you are! You and the rest of that fairy tale trash poisoning my perfect world.
But what stands out the most about him is that he's clearly very insecure about his height, and it's obvious that he's trying to compensate for it, from the excessive size of Duloc Castle to his desperate desire to be seen as a king.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, is this not the most perfect kingdom of them all?
Well, technically you're not a king.
Thelonious... You were saying?
While Shrek appreciates Fiona for the unique person that she is, Farquaad sees the princess as a package to be delivered to his castle, which is just gross. Heck, his actual wedding is more of a vanity spectacle than anything romantic, and the audience is even giving cues for reactions. It's that staged. Then, when Fiona exposes her ogre curse, Farquaad is very quick to immediately dismiss her value to him, and even demands that she's thrown in his dungeon. This is what makes his ungraceful demise so satisfying to audiences. Cutter from Ants. Colonel Cutter is the right-hand man to General Mindable, and an accomplice to the General's ongoing scheme to create a militarized colony. I was a little unsure whether to include Cutter on my list, because I've had backlash in the past for not including baddies who walk that fine line between villain and henchman, so I held a fan poll and the consensus was that he should be counted. In all honesty, I actually find Cutter to be a far more engaging villain than Mindable himself, hence why I've ranked him higher. Sure, there's some fun to Mindable's growing insanity as a genocidal warlord, but Cutter just compels me more. Cutter has dedicated his life to the military, remaining loyal enough to rise up through the ranks of the hierarchy. However, he's been so dedicated to the military that he seems almost brainwashed, and fearful of challenging those in charge. When he does try to raise concern or vouch for the worker ants, he's immediately gaslit by Mindable.
Sir, I've been thinking, do we need to go through with this? Look at what these workers have done. They got the right stuff. Isn't there any other way?
Cutter, you're a fine officer. You have discipline, courage, ability. But you seem to have a certain weakness for the lower orders that I find disturbing. Now, are you with me?
Sir, I apologize.
But it's very obvious that he has been questioning the ethics of his boss. All of his guilt and repressed emotion bubbles up by the end, leading to him finally protesting against Mindable's evil regime.
Cutter! What are you doing?
Something I should have done a long time ago. This is for the good of the colony, sir.
Cutter's mental battle between military loyalty and what's right is what makes him such a fascinating Dreamworks villain to me. Pitch Black from the Rise of the Guardians. Pitch Black is the boogeyman incarnate in a world where holiday icons exist to protect children, and he's working on a plan to rid the world of happiness in favour of his brand of fear. Pitch is the embodiment of darkness itself, and a conjurer of children's worst nightmares. He can also be seen as the antithesis to the Sandman, the creator of kids' sweetest dreams, because Pitch has the power to torment children's sleep, to the point where kids end up developing depression. This is why it's such a power move when Pitch slays Sandy. It tips the balance between fear and faith in the world. At the same time, Pitch is just as fragile and afraid as any other mythological icon, because he's deeply scared of becoming forgotten. There's something honestly profound about the idea of fear itself feeling fear too. It's his anxiety of the world forgetting him that mirrors Jack Frost's own worries, because Jack too feels ignored by kids. Pitch, in a stroke of devious genius, uses this kindred connection to try and win over Jack.
All those years in the shadows, I thought no one else knows what this feels like. But now I see I was wrong. We don't have to be alone, Jack. I believe in you. No, children will too.
Which leads to Jack losing his staff and the trust of the Guardians. Pitch really knows how to bend things to his whim by abusing people's vulnerabilities. In my Rise of the Guardians review, I complained that Jude Law's voice for Pitch was underwhelming. However, on a new viewing, I've come to kind of love it. He sounds creepily predatory, but also scared and desperate. There's layers to his performance.
I want what you have. To be believed in. Maybe I'm tired of hiding under beds.
Rumpelstiltskin from Shrek Forever After. Long ago, con artist Rumpelstiltskin tried to get Princess Fiona's parents to sign over the kingdom of Far Far Away to him, in order to save their daughter. But once Shrek the Ogre rescued Fiona, they tore up the contract. Years later, Rumpelstiltskin gets revenge by offering busy family man Shrek a chance to be an ogre for a day, but he ends up creating an alternate reality where Stiltskin is the king of Far Far Away. Now yes, Rumpelstiltskin is the least visually intimidating Shrek villain to date, but the film compensates for this by showing how powerful he is in spite of his cutesy design. What he lacks in brawn and size, he makes up for with cunning and manipulation. His best skill, like all grifters, is his ability to exploit people's greatest desires by granting their wishes with sneakily worded contracts. In a dystopian Far Far Away, where everyone is suffering and struggling, this really benefits Stiltskin. Heck, it's where all of his power and respect comes from as a tyrant.
Mr. Stillskin! Oh, please!
Okay, go.
Oh, please make me a real boy!
Go away.
Terms are in the details, bossa boy.
Sayonara, termites! Hello, Acme!
He also knows how exactly to use those more talented, taller and stronger than him as pawns in his scheme. From threatening witches with water to keep them in line as minions, to hiring a super skilled piper to send the Ogre Rebellion into a trance. Rumpelstiltskin is a great example of how a villain doesn't have to be a giant brute to be imposing. Much like in modern society today, narcissistic fame can be a key to power over the insecure and needy. Grimmel the Grizzly from How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World. Grimmel is a dragon hunter who is after Hiccup's beloved Toothless, an alpha dragon. While I wouldn't say that Grimmel is the best How to Train Your Dragon villain, he's still a brilliant final foe in the trilogy. He's very smug and arrogant, but he's earned his keen confidence, because his biggest strength is being 5 steps ahead of our heroes.
A fighting spirit, I love it, only I'm afraid you're mistaken. You've never seen anything like me.
What he lacks in brute strength or imposing physique, he makes up for in his hyper-intelligence. While Hiccup has used his intense knowledge of dragons to sympathize with and better understand them, Grimmel has educated himself on dragonkind so that he can exploit them. What's also disturbing is that he's happy to drug his very own pet dragons, so that they're under his full command.
But you have dragons of your own.
These? They're dragon killers, drugged into obedience with their own venom. Not even your precious alpha could control them.
Grimmel has an eager passion for dragon hunting too. He gets a sick thrill from the adrenaline of tracking down dragons. It's this twisted excitement that makes him a riveting villain.
Oh, isn't this fun? Yes? No.
Ugh.
Yes. Yes. Where's your love of the hunt? I thought you were conquerors.
Mrs. Tweedy from Chicken Run. Mrs. Tweedy is a chicken farmer who tires of making minuscule profit, so she decides to turn her chickens into pies. Somehow, this Dreamworks collab with Aardman managed to turn a Yorkshire farm lady into one of the scariest animated movie villains of all time. Her scowl will give you goosebumps, and her evil grin will make you shiver. It's pretty disturbing how much she enjoys slaughtering her chickens. It's not a reluctant part of her everyday job, it's one of the only perks to her. When her pie making machine finally arrives, she expresses a rather creepy sense of joy.
Imagine it. In less than a fortnight, every grocer's in the county will be stocked with box upon box of Mrs. Tweedy's homemade chicken pies.
Chicken Run has this sense of hopelessness as a film, and that's all because Mrs. Tweedy has made it pretty much near impossible to escape her farm. From Mr. Tweedy's obsessive patrolling, to the threat of vicious guard dogs. But the chickens aren't her only victims. Even her own dopey husband faces her wrath. Despite being a married couple, Mrs. Tweedy treats Mr. Tweedy like crap, and their relationship borders on domestic abuse.
Mr. Tweedy! I may finally have found a way to make us some real money around here, and what are you on about? Ridiculous notions of escaping chickens. It's all in your head, Mr. Tweedy. Say it.
It's all in me head. It's all in me head.
However, Mrs. Tweedy is at her most intimidating when the chickens finally successfully escape using a homemade plane. This is when our villain goes completely berserk, desperate to keep hold of a gold mine, with a deranged look on a maniacal face. Eris from Sinbad, Legend of the Seven Seas. Eris is the goddess of discord who makes a bargain with Sinbad the sailor, promising him great things if he can steal the sacred book of peace from the city of Syracuse for her, only for Sinbad to later back out of the heist. However, Eris ends up framing Sinbad as the thief, and he's sentenced to death. Sinbad's old friend, Proteus, says that he'll take Sinbad's place if he fails to retrieve the book before a deadline. So Sinbad and his crew go on a voyage to get back the book from Eris. Eris is one hell of a unique animated rogue. She's this devious and shadow-like deity with amazing transformation skills that embrace the creative freedom of animation.
Who's there?
Her every moment on screen is a visual delight, because she's so captivatingly metamorphic and beautifully seductive. But she's more than just a pretty goddess. She's also quite intelligent and formidable as a villain too. She knows the best monsters to throw at Sinbad's crew at each map point, using each beast like a clever chess move in an ocean-wide game.
Sirens! We later find out that her plan goes deeper than her surface level too. Her real aim is to get Proteus executed,
by relying on Sinbad to ditch his old friend in favour of his own freedom. She's a goddess who knows how to take advantage of humans' predictable nature. At the same time though, she deeply underestimates humanity. It's her pessimistic assumptions about Sinbad that causes a complicated scheme to crumble into pieces by the end.
I didn't lie. I came back. That's why you're here. This was all part of your test. I told the truth. And wasn't there something about being bound for all eternity?
Capitaine Chantal Dubois from Madagascar 3. When the Madagascar gang go on the run across Europe, Captain Chantal is assigned to track them down. Holy crap, I love this villain so much. She's a prime example of an S-tier Dreamworks baddie. There's something wonderfully gripping about how relentless she is in her animal control mission. Nothing will stop her path. She even adopts animal-esque behaviour to be at one with her prey, which is both creepy and kinda funny. Oh, and when she's arrested for taking things too far, she's sneaky and smart enough to escape prison, and casually carry on her relentless machine-like hunt. Ever since she was a kid, she's had a disturbing love for hurting animals, which makes it all the more frightening that she's landed an animal control job.
When I was 7, I strangled my first parrot, flushed my first goldfish, punched my first snake.
The only animal missing on her trophy wall is a lion too, which makes her chase very personal for Alex, because he's her major target.
If I am going down, your head is coming with me.
I don't think so!
This captain is peak Dreamworks villainy, being both entertainingly hilarious and effectively threatening. Goldilocks and the Three Bears from Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. In this acclaimed Puss in Boots sequel, every character is trying to seek out the legendary magic star so that they can grant their dream wishes. One such party in this quest is Goldilocks and her Three Bears family. Goldilocks' kinship with her adoptive parents and brother is genuinely adorable. Even though they're all criminals, they're very much your typical family through and through. They bicker and tease, but they love each other dearly.
I can taste that wish now. And you know what it tastes like?
Pies? Pies! Who ate all the pies? Who ate all the pies? We ate all the pies! Oh, it's gonna be wicked!
We later learn that Goldie feels self-conscious for not having a traditional human family, which deeply hurts her adoptive family. However, like any good family, they care more about what she wants than what they want.
I was always afraid it was too good to last. And whether you think we're your family or not, if this is something that will make you happy, we'll get you that wish.
This all leads to a wonderful lesson on how adoptive families are just as valid as biological ones, as Goldie learns to appreciate what she already has.
Stop it! Mom, I'm slipping!
Like I told you, baby, you're the smash, I'm the grab. Yes!
My favourite thing about this ragtag gang though, is how thoroughly British they are. I especially love how varied their British slang is. Dreamworks didn't just make them say governor and bloody a lot, then call it a day. No, they gave these characters a wide vocabulary of thick English slang words. I don't know if this was down to research on Dreamworks' part, or cultural feedback from the British voice actors themselves, but it's fantastic nonetheless.
I can nick a map as good as any old cat.
You've got a plan.
What? I'm smart, ain't I? Ain't I, Papa?
No, you ain't well fixed for brains.
Tai Lung from Kung Fu Panda. Tai Lung is a snow leopard who was once a student/adoptive son of Master Shifu. But once Tai Lung started showing a dark side, his chance to become the Dragon Warrior and read the legendary Dragon Scroll was rejected. So Tai Lung went on a rampage that led to his imprisonment. One day, Tai Lung manages to escape the tightly guarded prison so that he can track down the Dragon Scroll and become the ultimate martial artist. Tai Lung is such a feared and powerful kung fu master that he needs to be heavily locked up in a prison with a staff of over 1,000 guards. Yet he still manages to break out and knock down every guard like falling dominoes. That is one hell of a way to set the stakes for a movie villain. His skills don't stop there though, because throughout the whole film, he demonstrates amazing moves and stunning dodges, even managing to stun every single member of the Furious Five. He's a pupil of the great Shifu after all. He's not all arrogant talk, he's genuinely passionate about Kung Fu, and even expresses excitement over eventually fighting Po.
I heard how he fell out of the sky on a ball of fire, that he's a warrior, unlike anything the world has ever seen.
Po?
So that is his name. Po. Finally, a worthy opponent.
But it's his relentless nature that blinds him from being a truly noble warrior. He's so determined and self-entitled that he doesn't stop to understand why his adoptive father rejected his ambitions. When father and son finally reunite, it is not a pleasant meeting, but rather a painful conflict that results in suffering on both sides. Tai Lung's impatience and huge ego also prevents him from finding the same conclusion as Po, and it's his ignorance that sets him apart from the now enlightened Po.
It's nothing!
Oh, it's okay. I didn't get it the first time either.
What?
There is no secret ingredient. It's just you.
Drago Bloodfist from How to Train Your Dragon 2. Drago is a dragon collector who wants to grow his very own scaly army to conquer the world. Without a doubt, this guy is my favourite How to Train Your Dragon villain. Not only does he have a scary looking design for a Dreamworks baddie, but he also has a blood curdling scream that'll ring in your head even after you finish the film. He symbolises the polar opposite of our hero Hiccup. Hiccup bonds with dragons on a special level, but Drago only sees them as tools for war. Just like Hiccup 2, Drago has a disability, but while Hiccup has adapted to his lost limb, Drago uses his trauma as an excuse to enslave dragons.
I know what it is to live in fear, to see my village burned, my family taken. But even as a boy, left with nothing, I vowed to rise above the fear of dragons.
Drago is also a teaching lesson for Hiccup as he transitions into chiefhood, because Drago's lack of morals makes Hiccup realise that he won't be able to reason with everyone he meets. Some people are just pure evil and have no heart to sway. Oh, and boy does Drago make things personal with Hiccup. With no remorse at all, he uses his alpha dragon to hypnotise Hiccup's beloved Toothless into targeting his best bud, only for Stoic to step into the line of fire.
No! Get away from him! Go on! Get out of here!
Drago is everything that I want from an animated villain and more. I knew right from the beginning that I would end up ranking him pretty high on this list. Jack Horner from Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Jack Horner is a 100% irredeemable monster with no reluctance when it comes to harming others, whether he's sacrificing his own minions like it's nothing, or threatening to shoot a poor puppy in the face. At a time when animated films have become obsessed with giving their villains sob stories, even if they don't deserve a redemption arc or audience sympathy, Jack Horner reclaimed the idea that a villain doesn't need to be redeemable to be well written. Sometimes, heck most of the time, bad people are just bad people, and it doesn't need to be more complicated than that.
I hate talking fairy tales.
Jack is simply a fun as hell, scene-stealing and wonderfully campy villain, with a truly great character design made up of wacky pink hair, an expressive ugly face, fabulous fashion sense, and an intimidating giant stature. Keep in mind too, Jack has a huge collection of magical weapons, which he uses to his unfair advantage in the race to the wishing star. A lot of the fun of his character comes from the unpredictable nature of his bottomless bag of enchanted items.
Hey, Softpaws! How do you like cheese apples? Die! Grow up already!
Throwing in Jiminy Cricket as his short-lived conscience was a stroke of genius too, because Jiminy's reactions mirror the audience's feelings, and challenge the cliche that every bad person has the potential to self-reflect and change.
That was horrible! Your wish is horrible! You're horrible! You're an irredeemable monster!
Oh, what took you so long, idiot?
Puss in Boots 2 only came out last November, yet Jack Horner has already become a heavily memed icon of modern animation. Deservedly so, too.
Oh, what a good boy am I.
Titan from Megamind. Hal is a nerdy cameraman who is infatuated with news reporter Roxanne Ritchie. When superhero Metro Man is defeated by villain Megamind, Megamind ends up missing fighting a rival, so he resorts to creating a serum that will give Metro Man's powers to a potential superhero. Unfortunately, Hal accidentally receives these superpowers and becomes the Cape Crusader Titan. The problem is that Hal is a childish idiot who can't handle this new responsibility. Right from the get-go, Hal showcases limited social skills and a desperate need to impress others, especially Roxanne. He's less of a charming dork and more of an insecure incel, which is what makes him such a terrible superhero candidate.
I know this is a lot to take in. It may take months for you to come to grips.
No freaking way!
I wasn't finished!
Titan can be seen as a clever deconstruction of the whole superhero mythos, a satirical look at how some comic book fans misunderstand superheroism. You see, Hal is under the impression that becoming a superhero will improve his life, because he naively bases all of his expectations on film and comic cliches. When reality smacks Titan in the face though, he is deeply angered, and the real Hal comes out, a narcissistic self-pitying moron who feels that the world owes him a better life.
This
Just
isn't
take a deep
right.
breath and listen
You're
to me for a
supposed to
moment.
be with me.
I'm trying to warn you. Hal?
It's Titan. It's Titan, not Hal.
Many men like Hal exist in the real world, which is what makes Titan so scary. He's a disturbing reflection of the seedy side of the male nerd community. An incel who takes rejection too much to heart and invents a sob story to play victim.
This is Metro Tower. They say it's supposed to be a symbol of our city's strength, but for me, it's a reminder of the day this woman ferociously ripped out my heart. And I hate reminders!
While Megamind, who has been rejected by the world, comes to realize his merit and worth as a potential hero, Hal embraces his worst traits and only uses his powers to inflate or protect his ego, showing that superpowers don't make a superhero, but rather, a superhero is a good person who happens to be gifted. Death from Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Death is a truly sinister and creepy wolf who represents the end of life itself. This villain isn't some tyrant wanting to rule the world, he's a neutral force who simply takes pleasure from tormenting Puss and sensing his fear, as well as a badass and unique twist on Grim Reaper folklore who has mastered a pair of sickles for weapons. He also serves as a powerful thematic part of the film, because his recurring presence is a vivid reflection of Puss's growing anxiety over losing his lost life, with the film portraying him as a highly intimidating figure who looms near Puss like a fairy tale boogeyman. What's interesting is that his motive is less about killing Puss, and more about scaring the jeepers out of this arrogant cat who claims to be immortal. It's why he's happy to hand Puss a sword. He wants to savor Puss's fear and panic. When Puss finally reaches full circle in his character development, Death decides to bow out of the fight, not because he feels like he's lost, but because there's no entertainment in harassing him now. His fanatophobia has been conquered.
You're ruining this for me. I came here for an arrogant little legend who thought he was immortal. But I don't see him anymore.
Lord Shen from Kung Fu Panda 2. Long ago, Shen the Peacock wanted to use firework powder to create destructive cannons. This forced a soothsayer to warn Shen's parents that their son was on a dark path and could only be stopped by a warrior of black and white. Said prophecy motivated Shen to wipe out every panda, a genocidal crime that resulted in his parents banishing him from the kingdom. Years later, Shen has now finished his cannon project, but becomes afraid of losing once he realizes that one panda is still alive, Po the Dragon Warrior. Firstly, Shen has some of the most amazing character animation that Dreamworks has ever done. He walks with this elegant command that shows he means business as a warlord, and his fighting style has this slick, regal grace that reflects his personality. Secondly, the hero and villain dynamic between Shen and Po is fantastically constructed. I mean, Shen was the one who slaughtered Po's own kind, and supposedly killed the family that he never got to meet, while Po is the very thing that Shen was warned would crush his evil plans.
A peacock is defeated by a warrior of black and white. Nothing has changed.
Shen could have dedicated his life to improving his martial arts, like any good kung fu master, but he relies very heavily on weapons to substitute his limitations or flaws, most notably his explosive cannons. In contrast, Po has spent years getting better and better at what he does, earning his title as the Dragon Warrior in the process. The yin and yang of Po and Shen plays effectively into the film's message on enlightenment. The constantly paranoid Shen has never successfully reached any kind of spiritual peace, because he let the trauma of his parents' rejection consume him, hence why he's always so paranoid and anxious.
It is time to stop this madness.
Why on earth would I do that?
So your parents can rest in peace.
My parents hated me. Do you understand?
But Po, he's come to peace with his past, and cleared his mind through Kung Fu. It's his better mental health that makes him the stronger character in the final showdown.
I scarred you for life.
See, that's the thing, Shen. Scars heal.
No, they don't. Wounds heal.
Oh yeah, what do scars do? They fade, I guess?
I don't care what scars do.
You should, Shen. You gotta let go of that stuff from the past, because it just doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is what you choose to be now.
Shen has every right to reach this list's top 10. He's uniquely designed, beautifully animated, rivetingly creepy, and captivatingly voiced by Gary Oldman. Plus his richly written character development expertly ties into the spirit of what Kung Fu Panda 2 is all about. Ramesses from the Prince of Egypt. Ramesses and Moses were once adoptive brothers in the Kingdom of Egypt, which has been built by Hebrew slaves. But once Moses learns of his Hebrew origins, he runs away from home. Years later, Moses returns, to Ramesses' delight, but he's only here to free his people in the name of the Hebrew god. When Ramesses declines their freedom, Moses warns his brother that Egypt will face a series of plagues until Ramesses changes his mind. Ramesses has to be one of the most fascinating and complex animated characters in cinema history. He's this pharaoh who has inherited a long-running royal Egyptian legacy and greatly fears being the weak link, an insecurity rooted in the traumatic words warned by his strict father.
When I pass into the next world, then you will be the morning and evening star.
One damaged temple does not destroy centuries of tradition.
But one weak link can break the chain of a mighty dynasty.
The emotional core of his character, though, is his relationship with his brother, which has been broken by the division between the siblings. Ramesses is tied between his determination to please his ancestors, a frustration with the Hebrew god, and a deep desire to have his brother back. It's what makes the conflict between Moses and Ramesses so compelling to follow.
I have to maintain the ancient traditions. I bear the weight of my father's crown.
Do you still not understand what Seti was?
He was a great leader.
His hands bore the blood of thousands of children.
Slaves.
My people.
You could argue that Ramesses is not even a villain, but instead a leader just trying to keep his culture alive under the pressure that his abusive father bestowed upon him. And the god is the cruel one for tormenting his people, then eventually slaying all Egyptian firstborns. However, he's given every chance possible to stop this madness and end the suffering of the Hebrew people, but refuses every opportunity until he ends up losing his beloved son. Ramesses is not guilt-free. He's a complicated character. We resent him, but sympathize with him too. He's a tyrant obsessed with paying respect to a dynasty built on slavery. Yet there's also a part of us that feels sad that he's growing apart from the brother he was once best friends with.
You were always there to get me out of trouble again. Why can't things be the way they were before?
Fairy Godmother from Shrek 2. When Shrek and Fiona visit Far, Far Away, many are disappointed that Fiona has chosen the ogre life and married the big green Shrek. The Fairy Godmother, who wanted her son Prince Charming to marry Fiona, is the most upset. Meanwhile, Shrek is facing a crisis of self-consciousness. So he steals a magic potion from the Fairy Godmother, which makes Fiona and Shrek human. The Fairy Godmother uses this to her advantage, by tricking Fiona into thinking that Charming is the new Shrek. Fairy Godmother is an icon. When you say Dreamworks villains, she's the first one that I think of. She has the flamboyant personality of a classic Disney fairy tale villain, but with that little extra Dreamworks wit.
Harold, you force me to do something I really don't want to do.
Where are we?
Well, hi there. Welcome to Friar's Fat Boy. May I take your order?
diet is ruined. I hope you're happy.
She puts on this whole wholesome auntie act, playing into a godmother role to the common people, but behind her maternal facade is a cruel woman who is using her secret royal connections to gain power. Much like Shrek's father-in-law, she has this old-fashioned notion of romance based on comfortable tradition. So she's not just trying to worm her way into the kingdom for selfish reasons. She's also desperate to force Shrek into a life of unhappiness, just to prove that he doesn't deserve a forever after ending, which is so wicked. She finds this creepy balance of punching Shrek down, while also seeming like a nurturing old lady who wants the best for him.
Don't you think you've already messed her life up enough?
I just wanted her to be happy.
And now she can be. Oh, sweetheart. She's finally found the prince of her dreams.
However, it's her unforgettable rendition of holding out for a hero in the film's spectacular finale that cemented her as the ultimate diva villain. From her fabulous sparkly red dress, to the glorious belting vocals of Jennifer Saunders. Shrek 2 is renowned for being the best Shrek movie to date, and a huge reason why has to be the scene-stealing fairy godmother. So those are my rankings. Who would you say is your favourite Dreamworks villain and why? Let everyone know in the comments below. I've been Jambareeqi. Cheerio, folks.